All right, so we'll get started now. All right, welcome everybody. Uh, Today we're doing a webinar, pre-application webinar for our Frontier Native American Communities program and Neighborhood Commercial Corridors program. These are our community economic development project-based initiatives offered through our Main Street program here at the Economic Development Department in the state of New Mexico. I am Lucas Pedraza, the project coordinator for New Mexico Main Street. I am the one who receives the applications, who will walk you guys through the application process and set up meetings and those kinds of things and help you figure out your project. I am the main point of contact. Daniel Gutierrez is not here today. He is in a training today himself, so he won't be joining us today. But if we have a point where you guys are putting together the application, he may jump into those meetings and discuss with you guys your projects. Oh, sorry. There you go. So this is a project of New Mexico Main Street, but we work under the Economic Development Department. So with all our programs, this is the mission. We are creating and maintaining a competitive environment to create jobs, increase the tax base, and provide critical resources for business development. And within this mission, our part here at Main Street, we're an asset-based community economic development program, licensed and accredited by the National Main Street Center for the past 37 years, I should say, I think there. And the program's core objective is downtown revitalization and development. And we build capacity for local economic revitalization and redevelopment efforts, enhance the entrepreneurial and creative economy, and create thriving places in New Mexico. And so these are sort of our guiding principles. And we are Main Street program. So we have 30 different communities around New Mexico that are full-fledged Main Street programs. And if you're interested in becoming a Main Street program, this is the way to get through and to sort of get on our list to become an accredited Main Street program. But this is also just a way for us to be able to start doing work in your community. And we have two versions of this. It's a rural program and an urban program. And I'll get into more details about how this all works out here. So here, you can see that we have 30 different communities all around New Mexico. The 30 Main Street programs are full nonprofits with 501c3 status. They have a executive director that's full-time or part-time in some cases for in really small communities. These Main Street programs have an ongoing MOU with us and their local government that provides them a contract to do revitalization services for their downtowns. And they go through an accreditation process and a startup process to become a Main Street program and maintain their Main Street program status. There's among those 30 Main Street programs, 12 of them have arts and cultural districts as well. They're pretty much programs that have decided that in their community there's enough arts and cultural assets in their district that justify arts and cultural district, which qualifies them for some tax incentives to in their community for different kinds of assets. But really, we're here to talk about the Frontier and Urban Neighborhood Commercial Corridor programs. So right now we have 6 Frontier Native Community projects that are active. You can see them here on this map, and they all have an individual project, and they basically get to a chance to access the resources that we provide through our Main Street program, but on a temporary basis to complete a project over a year and a half. And the Urban Commercial Corridors project or program is the same kind of project or project-based program, but for urban commercial districts. And we have 11 different historic theaters that are going through restorations throughout the state, but we won't really be going into that today. All right. So as I was saying, the Frontier Native American Communities Initiative was established in 2013 by New Mexico legislator. So our program for Main Street is only usually accessible to Main Street, full-fledged Main Street programs. But because we wanted to give more assistance to folks who didn't necessarily have the capacity or weren't in a place to start a full-fledged Main Street program, this program was created to bring the technical assistance and services that we give to Main Street programs to small rural communities that have under 15,000 residents, to focus on, to help them complete catalytic economic development projects in their traditional business districts. So we call it sometimes Main Street Light. Essentially, is a little bit less commitment from you all, in terms of you don't have to have the whole MOU with your local government, a contract, and a Main Street director in place. We can work with you and your stakeholder group to complete a project, and you can keep coming back to us to get things done as needed. Or if you're interested, this becomes like a pathway for communities to actually start up their own Main Street programs. And really, what happens if you become a Frontier Native American community, you get 12 to 18 months working with us on a project with our technical assistance to complete that project that you apply for. So that's basically the Frontier Native American Communities Initiative in a nutshell. The Urban Commercial Corridors Initiative is a new program that started a couple of years ago now. It's the same sort of concept, except we're expanding to serve urban commercial corridors, neighborhoods in places like Santa Fe, Albuquerque, and Las Cruces for the same amount of time, 12 to 18 months. And the focus is to work on something that's a catalytic economic development project that starts from the ground up with folks like yourselves on this call in a stakeholder group. So general projects that we work on, they must be they're project-based initiatives that must demonstrate the potential for job creation, business development, and leverage private sector investment, and enhance a community's economic development environment or capacity to do economic development in the community. It's not a grant program, so there's no funds tied to this. If you get this designation, what we do is we actually work with you through our technical assistance, which I will go into a little bit, which kinds of contractors that we have. We call them revitalization specialists that have different focus that can help with different kinds of projects. We'll get into that a little bit more later on. So you would be, if you were accepted into the program, you would have access, be assigned a revitalization specialist and have access to their services throughout the duration of the project, as well as be able to attend our trainings and conferences that we have every year. And each project has to start with a stakeholder group of volunteers and a local government partner. So we want to make sure that your local government is buying into this stakeholder group and the projects you guys are coming up with. It becomes a vital piece of the work in many cases. You may need help with some zoning. You may need help with some permitting, those kinds of things. There's a lot of different things the local government might want to come in and get involved with. Some cases, a project may lead to a point where you might need some capital outlay funding for infrastructure. And it's going to be really important to have a local government partner who's bought into the project and the concept to be able to do that work, following up on what we do with you guys. So it's really important that you are engaging with your local government as you go through this process. So New Mexico's technical assistance is going to be, so if you're selected as a a Frontier Native Community or Urban Commercial Corridor, you would be assigned a revitalization specialist. And these revitalization specialists are focused in sort of a 4-point approach that we have, which I'll go into a little bit more. And they're in economic vitality, promotion, organization, and design. Economic vitality can be helping you figure out how to start a accelerator program or a incubation program in your community, or setting up a market, those kinds of things. Promotion is more around doing branding for your district, for your area, learning how to use social media, those kinds of things in your community. Organizations will help you build up an organization, a 501c3, or figure out how you can get funding for your organization. And design is around architectural kind of assistance, so we can go in and help you evaluate a building, look at ways to improve facades, or find little projects that can be done in your commercial district to make it a little bit prettier, beautify your district. I will have to say that so if you have a project that's going to require professional design services, they're going to be, when you get from us, are going to be conceptual. They won't be stamped by, as engineer, by an engineer or anything like that. We will help you get to those points where you can have a good, solid design of a project, and then help you get to the next step. But ourselves, we won't be providing those kinds of services directly to you. And as I mentioned earlier, frontier community projects and partners, as well as commercial, urban corridor commercial projects, corridor projects are going to have access to our Main Street institutes, workshops, and conferences. All right, so the Main Street 4-point approach is something that our national Main Street partners came up with. And the 4 points are basically designed to help you gain credibility in your community, build it's a sort of a model that helps you complete projects. When you're working all 4 points, you're really working efficiently and effectively to improve your downtown. And each one of our contractors, as I mentioned earlier, are specialists within each one of these 4 points. So our organization side, if you assign somebody like this, he would be working with you to identify board leadership, develop folks' capacity to understand economic development projects, how they get implemented, those kinds of things. Develop a memorandum of understanding with your local government around a project, those kinds of things. Design, you maybe get access if you're assigned our revitalization specialist in design. You may get somebody who's a landscape architect or urban design specialist, or you may get somebody who is an architect to work on your project. Economic vitality. You might get our business and entrepreneur development specialist. They can help you develop different kinds of programs, like an incubator or something like that. And promotions, as I mentioned earlier, is somebody who can develop a brand and identity and an image for your district or your project in general, depending on what kind of project you have. We also do work in websites and those kinds of things. So those are just to give you an idea of what kind of assistance you might get through us. And, sometimes a lot of projects will dip in a couple of different areas to get something done. And the idea is, when we're working with you, is we're building your capacity to do this kind of work too, as you go on and move forward yourselves. So when you're applying for a project, here are the eligible projects that are that you can apply for. Our website has our most current application. So if you're really interested in applying, I would suggest you look at that and set up a meeting with myself, so we could talk about your project's eligibility, what makes most sense for you guys to apply for. But generally, a place-making project will help you create a wayfinding system. So let's say you have a park and you do a lot of community events there, and you want to get people from the park after an event to go down to your downtown and 10 businesses there. Wayfinding system would be to help people find their way when they're walking, either through walking, bicycle, or driving, find their way to your downtown, or the points of interest that keep people downtown, those kinds of things. We could do landscape design kind of projects. Let's say you have a entrance to your town and you need to refresh it and let people know when they're entering the town and give them a good impression in your town. We can help you come up with a concept and design for those kinds of things. Facade improvement programs. I think most people are pretty familiar with that. We can help you identify funding sources. We do work with the New Mexico Resiliency Alliance to get grants of up to $5,000. If you have a storefront or a building that could be a centerpiece of your downtown that needs a refresh, that is something you can apply for. Real estate and property development is another project you can apply for. There's a lot of folks who are interested in adaptive reuse of buildings that may have been a office space at one point, and now you're trying to turn it into a marketplace or a place for a retail business. We can have somebody come in and look at the feasibility or something like that and figure out what kind of funding you would need, what kind of places you can apply for grants to get that kind of work done. And I want to say this about historic preservation. So Main Street always works with a historic preservation ethic. Applications and projects that have those kinds of elements to it will get scored a little bit higher because of that. We're definitely a revitalization program. We don't really get involved in new development kind of work. We're about reinvigorating downtowns, historic buildings, cultural properties, those kinds of things. So keep that in mind. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be about restoring a historic building, but we are not really interested in working in new development kind of projects. Is redevelopment that we're working towards here. So we do a lot of revitalization plans, metropolitan redevelopment areas, those kinds of things. So a lot of communities have approached us at that. So if you're interested in doing something like that, we can help you do that, get all the pieces together and do an asset inventory, those kinds of things, and actually help you and your local government apply to get funding to actually do a whole redevelopment plan for your own metropolitan area. We can help you set up a business incubator, as I mentioned before. We can help you set up a program where you do pop-up temporary business development work, and promotion, creative economy work are all fair game when it comes to applying for this designation as a frontier community or urban commercial corridor community. So I sort of mentioned this earlier. Common projects that we are interested in have to do with adaptive reuse of old buildings. We're not in the business of tearing down things and replacing with new things. We like to figure out how to preserve things that are within your community. So keep that in mind when you're applying for projects and evaluating whether this is not the right program for you. Okay, and so here are some examples of projects that we have done. Here's a Roswell Facade Squad proposed schemes. We went in with the community there and looked at buildings that could use a refresh and provided some designs, schematics for the buildings, and helped identify how those things could get funded. Another project is in Cuesta here. So this empty lot you can see here was decided by the community that they wanted to refresh it. And with the local stakeholders and a $5,000 grant through our partners at the New Mexico Resiliency Alliance, we refreshed this park and created a place for people to can hang out and get introduced to this place. And you can see there was some wayfinding elements here, and transform that one little corner to make it more useful and beneficial for their commercial district. Here is a plan that we did for Santa Rosa. They are actually a full-fledged Main Street program, and they're an example of a group who came to us as a Frontier Native community, and they got a master plan done for their revitalization of their downtown. And we work with them to get funding from New Mexico Finance Authority, which is a $50,000 grant to actually go in and create a whole plan where they look at all the different kinds of projects and opportunities for interventions within their district, what kinds of issues were plaguing their commercial district, and evaluated it and developed a conceptual plan for how to address revitalization in their community. And now they're a Great Blocks project for us. So they are working their way towards getting all this work done now, moving it from conceptual to actual construction. Here's some more design work that we have done in the past. So you can see this district's business district's streetscape design work that we did in Hurley. You can see it's a place where there wasn't really much on the street there. And then we came up with some designs, and now this is a project that they can go and shop to get some capital outlay funding to get these improvements done. This is another one this is a placemaking project in Mountain Air. This is also an empty lot with which got some about a $5,000 grant and some money from New Mexico Gas Company to create this park or plaza concept in their district. So we worked with them to put together the designs, convene the community, and decide what's the best way to create something that's going to be useful for the community and bring people downtown. So hopefully we piqued your interest here. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about what the next steps in the process will be. I think for you guys, it's really important to put together a revitalization team, a steering committee, a task force, local stakeholders who are going to steer the work, and identify what the project is and scope it out for you guys. Another big step will be to take that stakeholder group and work with your local partners to acquire any funds you may need to get the work going, whatever your project is, and get prepare the application and submit it to us. And we know that when you're working on these things, that your stakeholder group will be mostly volunteers, and we're not expecting that you always have everything ironed out, and we will work with you. So we just need to know that you have your local government engaged, a stakeholder group engaged. And if you need funding, you have ideas where you can get funding to get things done, or not every project necessarily requires funding, but you have some ideas where you need to go to get the funding to complete your project. So after you submit, you would work with us. We will work with you to generate an MOU based on what we can agree to help you with within 12 to 18 months. And we would create an implementation team from your stakeholder group, and we would assign you a revitalization specialist to help you carry that project forward. So the way I'm just going to go through how the application is structured. First section is about getting your contact information, your local government partner, and naming your stakeholder group. Second piece is all about community context and project information. Here you're going to identify key partners, maybe it's a business owner or somebody who owns the property, or maybe you have a local bank or somebody who's willing to fund something, or a foundation. What kinds of assistance do you need? This is important because we need to know that we can help you with whatever you're applying for. So we need to understand what kind of needs you have. We need to see a understanding of your cultural and historic assets in your community. We are an asset-based program, so we want to see that you guys are connected, we're connected within your community, and leveraging what you have there. And as I mentioned before, at least identify potential funding sources for how you complete the project after or during or while we're working with you guys. So project exploration section, we're really looking, so anything that has current plans, let's say you have a revitalization plan already, or you have other kinds of engineering documents or things of that nature that can help us understand the project and the problems that you're facing and trying to address. Helps us really scope out the project better and figure out if we can help you moving forward. And if the project is owned by, or a building that's owned by a private property owner, we would need a letter of approval from that property owner saying they're willing to work with you and they're okay with us doing assessments and those kinds of things on the property that the project will take place in. So if you're interested in one of these, myself and our staff and revitalization specialists are available to assist you with your project selection process and the application. So it always works best for us once we have understanding with you and sort of like, so at least in a conceptual way, work through on your project to figure out what can be completed. So the more time we get with you before you submit the application finally, the better you have a chance of getting accepted into the program. We want to make sure that we're committing to things that we can actually follow through on and complete. So I really encourage you to work with myself, or we'll give somebody, one of our revitalization specialists, a chance to meet with you all and to scope out your project and understand what your needs are and submit. And so please contact us if you need any help addressing any questions. We want to work with you all. Okay. Applications must be submitted electronically to myself and Daniel Gutierrez. You have our emails right there. No later than 5 p.m. on January 20th, 2023. I want to give you guys some time to explore your ideas and those kinds of things. So I'm giving you a little bit of time here to be able to put something together and hopefully you submit it to us so we can look at the application before you finally submit it, and we can work on your project and scope it to a good size of what we can get done. And please make sure when you submit that you get a confirmation from us to make sure that we received it. Sometimes, especially when it's the first time we're hearing from you, you know, things can get lost in the email, they get blocked, those kinds of things. So please, make sure you are getting confirmation from us once you have submitted. So after we receive all the applications, we will be making decisions about who will be accepted into the program. This is some competitive process. We do have limited capacity in terms of how many communities we can work on at a time. So sometimes we will have to make some tough decisions, but hopefully we can get everybody in. And then after we make announcements in February, the end of February, projects will begin in the spring and summer of 2023. All right, so you have my contact information here, and now I will open it up for questions. Yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. So if anybody would like to go ahead and ask a question, go ahead. Felicity.
Hi. I just wanted to ask if, is there a way that I could access the slides by any chance?
Absolutely. We could put the slides up on our webpage, and we will also have the YouTube or our YouTube link with the recording of this session.
Okay.
For you.
All right. Thank you. The presentation was really helpful. Thanks.
No problem. Any other questions? Yep.
This is Zach from Cuba. Hey, Lucas.
Hey, how you doing, Zach?
Good. How are you? I don't
Good.
think I have any questions, but I know my the Village of Cuba grant writer is on. Jeanette, okay. Do you have any questions, or you pretty much good to go? Well, maybe her computer's not working for
Yeah, it
But
looks like she unmuted, but we're not hearing.
yeah. But anyways, I'm sure I'll reach out to you guys if she does, or if I have questions. I know I've bothered you enough, so.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, Jeanette, feel free to give me a call if you need to talk about anything.
Thanks, Lucas.
Ian? Yeah.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. I'm in Albuquerque. Maybe I can't remember who it was who came visited our neighborhood association meeting last month.
Mhm. It's
And
probably Daniel.
Daniel, yeah, he gave a great presentation. And I'm in the Martineztown neighborhood. We're in the center of the city. So I've the urban grant of the two sounded like maybe. And Martineztown is a historic neighborhood that used to have a lot of mixed use in it, a lot of commercial, a lot of little stores. So like a mini main street per se, and there's a corner in the neighborhood that's got like some commercial activity on it. It's on the edge of the neighborhood, and that's what made it, I thought of when Daniel came and did his presentation. And so it would be like maybe like 3 or 4 residences, a couple businesses. It's across from the post office. Like that seemed like a landscape that would be suitable for that project.
Yep, that's right. That would work.
Okay, cool. And so it's like a 12 to 18 month project once we get our submission in. That's the and
Yeah, so it would pretty much start, the 12 to 18 months would begin. So if you're accepted into the program, we would sit down with you and put together a whole MOU that would basically be a scope of work, essentially what we'll work on over the next 12 to 18 months.
cool.
So it would start from there, because typically we know folks have a decent idea of what they want to do when they apply, and then usually once we get on the ground and start working, we figure out what exactly can be done in 12 to 18 months. So
Okay, cool.
no worries. We know
I'm just
that.
trying to get a more detailed, like a way to communicate this to the possible stakeholders, the possible task force members. So when I go and pitch this to them to help put this application together, it's easier for them to understand what might be, what we're doing. But
Yeah. So if you I mean, there's different things you can do if you want to explore having a Main Street program, those kinds of things. If you don't have one specific project in mind, but there's lots of different projects that might need help. You might need help with something we might be able to work with you guys on, is putting together like a cultural plan or something like that.
cool. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, thank you very much.
No problem. Do we have any other questions? Yes, Felicity.
Okay, I'll go ahead and I did
Sure.
just Google this, but I'll go ahead and ask about the New Mexico Resiliency Alliance, because that's something I haven't heard of before. Can you just talk a little bit or tell
Sure.
me a little bit about what they do and what kind of assistance they can provide to communities?
Sure. So the New Mexico Resiliency Alliance is a nonprofit that it provides grants to grassroots economic development initiatives around the state. The idea is to build capacity within communities to do this kind of work and community development work. And they provide grants mostly to our frontier native communities and Main Street programs. So if you're part of this, if you get this designation and you're accepted into the program, you would be eligible for one of their grants. And if it makes sense in terms of your project, we would work with you on putting together a grant application to get those funds.
Okay, so they don't necessarily work with communities outside of the Main Street program.
No, not necessarily.
Okay,
I think a big piece for them is to be able to leverage their grant with our technical assistance, because it just tends to get a lot further, the projects. And yeah, we have really great track record of completing projects, those kinds of things. So I don't remember the last time they actually gave a grant to somebody else. But yeah, so if you're part of this program, that's one of the avenues we can explore funding. All right. Yeah, okay, Stephen.
Right, Lucas, well, thank you so much for the presentation. I think it was a great overview and I definitely learned a lot. I just wanted to inquire, within the city of Aztec, we have a historic downtown
Mhm.
and we have a New Mexico highway that runs through it. We have an MRA designation thanks to working with the frontier communities. We did we worked with NMFA in terms of getting funding for a MRA downtown plan, and within that plan, it talked about doing some type of complete street road diet, pedestrian amenities, bicycle and pedestrian enhancement. That being said, do you have a good working relationship with the highway department to make some of those improvements or amenities happen on a NMDOT right away?
That's a common thing we get. So we not necessarily have a direct connection to them. We are hiring somebody who's going to be one of our revitalization specialists, who's going to be a transportation planner who would have connections to the folks at the Department of Transportation. So we could possibly help with that. I think if there's more design work that needs to happen in terms of conceptuals and ways to improve the roadway there, we can also help you with that. Yeah, so yeah, unfortunately right now, we don't have that person actually hired, but we are planning to hire that person soon.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. So you all have my contact information. I encourage you to look at the website, nmmainstreet.org, and check out the application. And feel free to reach out to myself and Daniel, and we can set up a meeting or start with a conversation. Don't be shy. We want to make sure that we're not wasting anybody's time, and we are working with you all to put in the best application you possibly can, and to get you into our program. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Hope you all have a good day. Look forward to hearing from you. Bye.